Hello, this is Thaddeus Kaczynski with the second lecture, commentary on Alistair MacIntyre's 1990 Aquinas lecture, First Principles, Final Ends, and Contemporary Philosophical Issues. We're about at the end of part 3, beginning part 4 on this lecture, if you're following along with the text. Towards the end of part 3, actually, yes, at the end of part 3, MacIntyre is talking again about the nature of first principles in the Thomistic Aristotelian paradigm and how it contrasts with modern foundationalism, what he calls post-Cartesian foundationalism. He wants to say that the first principles are not a priori, they're not analytic, and they emerge, first principles, as the goal of inquiry. We do not begin with them. And when we do grasp them, it's also grasping them in the context of the science as a whole, along with their implications and what follows from them. There's a sense in which we know the first principles only as first principles of a particular subject matter after having had conversance with that subject matter, thought about it for an extended period of time, and we only know the conclusions and second and third and fourth, you might say, principles of a particular science like physics or metaphysics or ethics. We only know those to be the case, to be true, as in light of the first principles that ground them. So there's that circular way of understanding knowledge that was irksome to somebody like Descartes, who wanted to start with an absolutely foundational first principle for all sciences, as well as a kind of first principle that one would know that one knew it to be true at the same time as one knew it in relation to its particular subject matter. MacIntyre says that such first principles are fictions. They don't exist. So just we'll read a little bit here. He says, that type of inquiry is one in which, according to Aristotle, there is a transition from attempted specifications of essences by means of pre-scientific definitions, specifications which require acquaintance with particular instances of the relevant kind, even although a definition by itself will not entail the occurrence of such instances, to the achievement of genuinely scientific definitions, in and through which essences are to be comprehended. Again, the knowledge of genuinely scientific definitions is a kind of accomplishment, an achievement that comes not at the beginning of inquiry. And so what makes first principles or definitions warranted? What makes them worthy of acceptance? Not because they're apodictically certain at first, or they're analytically true, like in Kant, synthetic a priori analytical statements. MacIntyre, for the Thomist, MacIntyre says, the first principles of a particular science are warranted as such if and only if, when conjoined with whatever judgments as to what exists may be required for that particular science, they can provide premises for a theory which transcends in explanatory and understanding affording power any rival theory which might be advanced as an account of the same subject matter. So MacIntyre is big, as it were, on saying that the way we know and how we know that we know has a lot to do with whether or not our account of the subject matter can withstand dialectical challenges, competitive, alternative, rival theories in a dialectical shootout, as it were, and stand and remain standing. Socrates, of course, says the same thing. I believe in the Phaedo. If your argument can withstand dialectical refutation, then you can claim it to be true. Now, of course, winning dialectical competition doesn't render your statement true. It's not true because of that. You might say that's a sign of its truth-having quality, that it can withstand competitions with rival versions. MacIntyre has a famous book, the third in his trilogy, Three Rival Versions of Moral Inquiry, where he does such a dialectical competition. He performs it. Thomism versus encyclopedic, post-Cartesian foundational ethical inquiry, a la, well, he includes a lot in there, but Kant, Hume, Adam Smith, the encyclopedists, the French philosophes, and the like, Spinoza, um, but essentially the Enlightenment, Locke, Hobbes, the Enlightenment tradition in ethical inquiry. The other tradition he battles against is what he calls the genealogical, which is, he mentions in here, the deconstructionists, followers of Nietzsche, and like such as Foucault, but he also would include in there the kind of anti-foundationalism of the analytic philosophy as well. So anyway, well, that brings us to part four. Part four is MacIntyre talks about dialectic. I'm not going to go into detail of this chapter. I only want to talk about it in its relevance for the rest of the readings of this course and the preceding readings. Dialectic, of course, is relevant. After all, every Summa Theologia article is a kind of synthesis and a combination of both dialectic and demonstrative analysis and inquiry. The objections in every Thomistic article are the best and brightest possible rival arguments and theories about a particular question. He lays them out, much in the way in which Aristotle lays out the endoxa, the opinions of the wise and of the most people in previous claims, previous philosophers, the sayings of the wise, what most people agree with. In other words, the best opinions of the day, right? Aristotle begins his physics, his de anima, his metaphysics, his ethics, his politics, with such endoxic dialectic, and he sifts through these opinions using a provisional pre-scientific definition, right? So, for instance, in the ethics, the notion he uses to sift through the partial and erroneous views about the good is a notion that happiness is the good, and it's an end in itself. So before looking at it in any more detail, any claim to being the good has to be an end in itself, and it has to have the qualities of being an end in itself. It has to be something that you desire never for a means but only for an end. It has to be something that's self-sufficient, that's perfectly satisfactory, for example. So in that sense, he can go through different theories of what that happiness, what constitutes happiness, such as honor or money or pleasure. Well, we're at the 8-minute mark here. Goes pretty fast when you're having fun. And either way, feel free to dress as informally as I am as you watch this. That's the deal. It's such a nice spring day here in Wyoming that I couldn't resist wearing a t-shirt. Well, we'll see you on the next part.